So Army football is 9-0. Hamas has been torturing Palestinian civilians in the Gaza Strip, and Hezbollah is hiding their military facilities next to United Nations bases and under cemeteries. Unfortunately, only one of those things is in the least bit surprising. I just didn't think this was going to be the year for Army football, but here we are. So diving right in, it's been a rough week, but it's been a rough few months, arguably a rough year for Iran, Hezbollah, and Hamas. We are still kind of waiting for the Iranian response to the Israeli strikes a couple weeks ago. They keep saying they're going to do something. They haven't. There is some speculation, rumor mill, if you will, that Iran is reassessing that risk following Trump's victory in this last week's U.S. presidential election. That is pure speculation, so take that with a grain of salt. But we're going to have to wait and see if Iran does anything here in the near future. Now, I want to start in the Gaza Strip, and we're going to shift up north then to the war in southern Lebanon with Hezbollah. But the big news out of Gaza just earlier today is Israel released 45 minutes of footage where, and I'm going to show just a very, very small portion of that. The full 45 minutes will be linked in the description below. It's on X and it's on Telegram. But in this 45-minute clip, it shows multiple instances of Hamas at Outpost 17 in the Gaza Strip conducting brutal interrogations and torture on civilians suspected of opposing Hamas. Israel says that the footage is understood to be from the years 2018 to 2020 and was uncovered in the Gaza Strip during the course of normal ongoing operations. Look, I'm not going to play a torture video here and provide commentary. No additional commentary needed here, right? The one thing that I will say is, as crazy as it sounds, the people who underwent this torture and this brutal treatment at the hands of Gaza, in some cases may have been the lucky ones. The reason I say that is Hamas countless times in recent years has been shown to not just torture, but kill political opponents. So, there's no indication what happened to these people after they left this place here at Outpost 17. But, torturing the civilians that they're in charge of, that they say they're fighting on behalf of every single day, this is Hamas. This is who they are. This is who they've always been. Now we just have 45 more minutes of footage to confirm that. Now, turning up north to the war in southern Lebanon with Hezbollah, we've got an interesting video here just because it's a unique unit. This is the Israeli Alpinist Unit, which is like a mountain warfare type organization. So not like the 10th Mountain here in the United States where we call them 10th Mountain, but they don't really go through any specific mountain training anymore. That's different. This is a mountain-trained unit that operates inside of the IDF, focused on, again, operating in mountain terrain as well as cold weather environments. Now, this video here is actually taken in kind of the Sheba area of southern Lebanon. That's at the very northeasternmost tip of Israel. I'll pull up a map here to show you where this is. And this is notable because this is the area where the rockets were fired into Majd al-Shams in that attack that took place back in July, where those Hezbollah rockets killed 12 Druze children. So it was just days after that attack that Israel responded by killing the Hezbollah chief of staff, Fuad Shukr. And at that point, Shukr was the most senior Hezbollah figure so far killed in this war. And if you look back at that date, the end of July, it really just kind of spiraled and escalated from there. Now, there's no telling that wouldn't have happened one way or the other. But again, the attack from Sheba into Majd al-Shams is kind of the trigger point for where we see the war right now. Now, turning to operations on the ground throughout southern Lebanon, by and large, I would argue that this war is easier for Israel to fight than the war in Gaza. And the reason I say this is it's much more of a conventional fight between Israel and Hezbollah. A lot of unconventional characteristics, the tunnels, the IEDs, kind of blend in with the population. But by and large, in the Gaza Strip, nobody could go anywhere, right? All of the militants were there and all of the civilians were there. That's not the case in southern Lebanon. You've seen a lot of civilians evacuate north, and you've seen a lot of militants evacuate north as well. There aren't nearly as many Hezbollah fighters that stayed put after Israel moved across the border, and it kind of shows. Now, one of the challenges that Israel is running up against is how Hezbollah has kind of incorporated itself into the infrastructure, we'll call it, in southern Lebanon. And just this week, news came out that Israel was able to identify a Hezbollah tunnel network and training compound just 200 meters from a UNIFIL base. Now, UNIFIL stands for the United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon. This is the group that is supposed to be enforcing UN Resolution 1701, keeping Hezbollah out of that area of southern Lebanon. Clearly not really working. We're going to run through some of the footage here of what the IDF was able to find. They say in one of these raids, again, around 200 meters from the UNIFIL base, they found a facility used for training. Actually, those blue RPG rounds, those are training rounds. Studying and storing large quantities of weapons. The facility contained launchers prepared for firing at Israeli communities. In another compound nearby, they said they found documents, instructional books detailing Hezbollah's operational methods, maps of Israel, explanations of IDF equipment, as well as tunnel shafts and additional weapons. The weapons were confiscated, and the compound was dismantled. Actually, I'm going to show you here in a second just how Israel dismantled some of these compounds. It was a different one, but interesting technique. And look, for anybody who's been following this war in southern Lebanon, finding out that Hezbollah is operating in very close vicinity to the UN troops is really nothing new. It's a real challenge for Israel, right? Trying to not strike the international organization there, trying to maintain the peace. But clearly they're not maintaining the peace. And Hezbollah is using that to their advantage. We're going to see that throughout the rest of this video. Very similar to how Hamas set up operations in certain areas of the Gaza Strip where Israel would come under fire if they attacked it, whether or not Hamas was actually there. You find the same thing in southern Lebanon. Hezbollah isn't stupid. They're going to set up their facilities to protect them in places like right next to a UN building, or in a moment here, I'll show you, underneath a cemetery. Now, I mentioned that one of the ways they're kind of closing up these tunnels that they're coming across is unique, and this is it right here. So in a lot of cases, we're seeing detonations, explosives moved into these tunnels, and they're collapsing the men on themselves. Other times, and I'm not sure why they're doing one over the other. It might have to do with the location, how easy it is to access. But in this case, they're just filling up some of those entrances with concrete. It's interesting. Seems like a little bit more of a short-term fix in a lot of ways, right, than detonating the tunnel in on itself. But nonetheless, that's the end of one more Hezbollah tunnel. Now, just like every other tunnel network, every other bunker, every other building that IDF has cleared in southern Lebanon that has a Hezbollah presence, right? It's not every single building, but when Hezbollah has used it, there has been a ton of military-grade equipment. And the interesting thing, again, up north with Hezbollah is this is like real high-quality stuff. It's not the homemade stuff we're seeing in the Gaza Strip. A lot of Chinese, Russian, some Iranian weapons, not nearly as much homemade. In this one, actually, we've got a rocket launcher, kind of a mobile launcher, and I want to show this clip because we've got another one here in a second. But this clip here I thought was really interesting because it shows kind of a mobile launcher here in southern Lebanon that Hezbollah had set up. And look at that, right on the trailer. They say aimed at northern Israel. Hard to tell for sure based off this footage here. Actually, a couple other pictures to kind of give you a better look at this specific piece of equipment. But underneath a tree like that, especially when it's filled with leaves, there's no chance you're going to be able to see this thing from overhead. So Hezbollah has gotten very, very good at being able to shield these weapon systems in southern Lebanon, keep them out in the open like this, drag them to a firing point, and then send that rocket into Israel. Now, another video coming out of Israel just a couple days ago was a tunnel network under a cemetery that you'll see here. Now, they say that the tunnel was approximately 1 kilometer in length, reached approximately 2 meters in height, and was located 1.5 kilometers from the border, but did not extend into Israeli territory. So again, a cemetery or next to a UN building, it's a place where Israel is possibly going to come under fire if they launch any sort of attacks in that area. Hezbollah knows it. Hamas knows it. That's why a lot of these places are set up. Within the compound, the IDF says they located command rooms, living quarters, and weapons storage facilities filled with arms and combat equipment and ready to be used to infiltrate Israel. Again, mass quantities of ammunition, weapons, uniforms, all that stuff. So Hezbollah militants above ground dressed in civilian attire. Can't tell that it's anything but a Lebanese civilian. They move into one of these tunnels. Sometimes the tunnel is inside, so you can't even see them enter the tunnel network. And all of a sudden, they're underground, forming a squad, platoon, company-size element, able to carry out rocket, mortar, or ATGM launches into Israeli territory, or, as is believed, carry out some sort of large-scale attack into Israeli territory itself. I want to wrap up here with some Hezbollah footage, which we're not getting a lot at this point, a lot less than I thought we would. In fact, at this point in the fighting, we saw a lot more coming out of Hamas than we are out of Hezbollah. What you're seeing right now was just released this last week, and it's all old footage. Old footage and stock footage, right? The majority of what I'm going to show you here is not from the battlefield. We do have some clips from the battlefield, but by and large, these are training exercises. This is just kind of stock Hezbollah propaganda footage. And there's a couple different ways you can tell that. I mean, there are some real clips mixed in here. But by and large, I'm going to say 90+% of this video is staged. And you can tell that based off the quality of the footage, right? They've got multiple cameras set up, the lighting, any one of these that have to do with small arms fire, engaging targets at close range, those are all staged or from training exercises. Those are not engagements with Israeli forces. You'd think that at this point they'd be putting some of that out. Hamas was putting that out. Palestinian Islamic Jihad was putting some of that out. Hezbollah, not so much. I think it, in a lot of ways, points to the fact that Hezbollah is actually hurting a lot worse than they want to let on right now. I think they've suffered significant casualties up and down the ranks, and maybe don't have, oh, there's a salute. Didn't expect that one there. You know what? Let's just move on then. All right, that didn't expect the Hitler salute in the middle of a Hezbollah video. So this is what Hezbollah has been putting out when showing kind of current operations. It's rocket, drone, and missile strikes in Israeli territory. Very hard to tell how much of it is actually taken in real time. The launch always looks genuine, right? But like right there, that's the launch. Looks like it's new and recent and all of that stuff. But they constantly are using Google Earth like imagery to show the locations they're trying to strike, and it is rare that we see any sort of aftermath. In fact, most of the time, any sort of battle damage assessment coming from any one of these strikes is because Israeli citizens inside of Israeli territory are uploading some sort of footage or pictures. Hezbollah just doesn't have that capability. So, how effective are these rockets, drones, and missiles? It's something. You can't write them off entirely, but by and large, at this point, Israel is very much winning the war in southern Lebanon. They're pushing Hezbollah back further and further north, really devastating the ranks of the Hezbollah fighters, killing a lot of their leadership, and we're just really not seeing at this point too much of a response from Hezbollah outside of, slinging rockets, missiles, and drones wherever they can, hoping to get past the Israeli air defense systems. But that's all I've got for now. Again, you'll find some of these videos linked in the description below if you want to check them out in their entirety. But thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.